Shifting focus, and Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police Chairperson Ian Cameron says the deployment of the South African National Defence Force in the Western Cape doesn't seem to be having any effect in decreasing the number of murders in the province. This follows the killing of 11 people in 3 separate shootings in Langa, Khayelitsha and Gugulethu on Saturday. Another shooting left 4 people dead in Reiger Park in Ekurhuleni in Gauteng.
There has been no real decrease in mass shootings since the SANDF has been deployed. Operation Prosper is not prospering. It hasn't shown any real result in terms of curbing any form of gang violence or extortion group violence. Whatever the case may be, it literally seems like some weeks murder is on the increase. Last week, or the week before last, we had over 100 murders in the region in the space of 7 days. So things are certainly not looking any better because of it, and I honestly believe it's because we're fighting blind. I think that unfortunately on ground level, criminals are aware when the police are going to go for them, whether they are tipped off or whether it's just poorly coordinated. And I think a lot of the work is haphazardly done. We haven't actually seen the numbers of soldiers that we needed to have to really destabilize gang activity. So that's point number one. Point number two is that there is no intelligence-led operation. Yeah, we've had some successes here and there with a reasonable drug find or a seizure or some firearms, but nothing has seen, an impact on the arrest of kingpins, stopping entire gangs from doing what they do.
That's the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, speaking to us a bit earlier on. Let's give you the perspective now of someone who works with communities affected by that violence. Nkosikhona Swartbooi is the coordinator for the Movement for Collective Action and Racial Equality in Cape Town, and he joins us now for that conversation. Good evening, and thank you for your time. It's the second week in a row where we've had a deadly tally of 11 lives lost to mass shootings, not to mention all the other incidents and instances that sometimes go unreported or underreported that are not necessarily mass shootings, as well as other mass shootings that have happened in the last few weeks. Why is the violence seemingly not abating despite the promised heavy deployment of SAPS and SANDF?
Thank you very much, Tula Sizwe. I have to say that crime has gone really out of hand in places like Khayelitsha, Gugulethu, and the rest of the Cape Flats, such that it is rare not to hear gunshots at any time of the day, especially at night and through to the early hours of the morning. I mean, one of the things that we've been saying that, the state, particularly national government, the SAPS, together with the city of Cape Town, that you can never police away poverty. You can never police away unemployment or the restlessness of young people. The rising unemployment, especially among the youth, is one of the key drivers when there are not enough opportunities for young people to get employment, that in the absence of not getting work, they will be lured into crime. And this has an economic impact, especially on businesses, many of those that have now closed, because of the rising extortion fees that are being imposed to these businesses by mainly criminals who have links directly to the police officers who are meant to keep our communities safe, who have also links to some of the politicians within our country. And this shows the breakdown of relations between the state, particularly the police, and the communities, because we've seen whistleblowers being targeted and being killed as a result of whistleblowing where crime is affecting communities. In terms of what needs to be done, we need the state to stop displacing crime and address the underlying issues. And we believe that more resources should be invested into sports, arts, recreation, and community facilities to run programs in communities where we can give young people something to do, because they are unemployed, they have nothing to do, they can't access universities or higher education, therefore they are sitting in corners doing nothing. We need to solve for those issues and ensure that instead of pouring billions of rands into programs like the law enforcement program that we have in Cape Town, which has not decreased crime in the city of Cape Town, we need to invest more money into recreational facilities, into programs where young people could be uplifted to get job opportunities, as well as getting things to do within their communities.
I'm glad you talked to the socio-economic factors that are at play in as far as the issues of crime and gangsterism are concerned. But I want to press in on a concept you touched on, where you talked about displacing crime, and you're saying authorities need to stop displacing crime. What do you mean by that? Is it the sense that some of the crimes that have been happening in a number of communities on the Cape Flats are now starting to manifest in other areas? I know that I had that concern, I think about a week or so ago, when we were talking about Kayamandi, and I just heard earlier on this show someone saying that Langa, for example, is another township where you would not have associated it with the kinds of gangsterism and extortion activities that we are seeing. Is that what you are talking about?
So what happens is that now that we've had 11 people dying in these three communities, Gugulethu, Khayelitsha, and the other community, you will see more police officers being deployed or police resources being deployed into those communities, leaving the other communities in limbo in terms of being vulnerable to crime, because we are not leading a coordinated approach of having an intelligence-based approach in policing. That policing is only seen as a crime issue and not as an issue that has embedded our society. One of the things we need to do, it is to clean up police institutions and rebuild the country's crime intelligence, which has been weakened and infiltrated by criminal elements. We've heard in the past months that if there are criminals that even sit in some of the crime prevention strategy meetings to listen in. And that is a concern, because crime is a systemic issue that needs not only policing or boots on the ground, as the mayor of Cape Town usually says, but we need to have a coordinated approach of rebuilding a relationship with the community, so that we are able to identify these criminals. But when we have identified them, they must be arrested, they must be prosecuted, and they must be thrown into jail, so that we are able to have these people suffering the consequences of the crime. Because now, if you whistleblow a crime, for instance, one of the people in the 11 people that have died are from my community, and the community members there do know what has led to the death of that Somali person that has been shot dead in their shop. But no one wants to come forward, because even the police themselves are allegedly working with these criminals. And so we need to clean up police institutions. We need to rebuild the country's crime intelligence, so that we can lead the safety element, which is guaranteed in Section 205 of the Constitution, through crime intelligent.
Parting short, Nkosikhona, and I'm glad you talked to the systemic issues, the overhaul that is needed. But what do we do now as an interim emergency measure? We've had the SANDF deployed Operation Prosper. Ian Cameron, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, says Operation Prosper is not prospering. It's not addressing specifically the crimes that it was deployed to address. So what do we need to do now in the interim, in the short term, alongside the systemic fixes that you are talking about, to stem the tide of these mass shootings?
The first thing that we need to do, we need to restore the relationship between the police and the residents of these cities, such as the city of Cape Town. It is not shocking to hear these numbers of people dying within a day in Cape Town. And so that is a concern, because we are normalizing something that is not normal. We need to restore that relationship with communities. We need to find ways to work with civil society leaders who are constantly working in these communities and are very much aware in terms of some of these issues that leads to the mass shootings
and the crime that is increasing in the city of Cape Town. We need to find ways to which we can ensure protection for those who come forward to report crime. For as long as we don't do that, we will have more people dying, because no one will want to risk their lives in order for them to whistleblow when they know that they will be targeted and killed the next day.
All right, let's leave it there for this evening. Thank you for sharing your insights from the communities that are affected by the crime and gangsterism that we are reporting about. That's Nkosikhona Swartbooi, who is the coordinator for the Movement for Care. That is the Movement for Collective Action and Racial Equity, and that is in the city of Cape Town.